Memorial is upon us. Welcome to the beautiful Moss Art Center in Blacksburg, Virginia. Giovanni Heater alongside Nick Brown, the site of today's 3304 kickoff show as the 14th ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish come to town to take on the Virginia Tech Hokies.
Notre Dame coming off of a loss to Cincinnati that vaulted the Bearcats up into that top 5 of the college football rankings, and Notre Dame dropping out of the top 10, losing at home. And Virginia Tech had a bye week to prepare for Notre Dame, but before that, they had an underwhelming win over FCS opponent Richmond.
Now, Notre Dame has not lost back-to-back games since 2016, and the Fighting Irish are also 24-1 against ACC schools in the regular season since 2017. Now, Nick, we talked about it. These are two teams that mirror each other really well. Two teams that have fantastic defenses, but struggle a little bit on the offensive side of the football, especially in the passing game.
Yeah, like you said, the team's strengths lie in their defensive side of the football. And then on the offensive side, both teams have question marks regarding their quarterbacks, and especially Notre Dame, where they've been rotating 3 quarterbacks this season.
Well, for more on the offensive identity of Notre Dame, we'll turn it over to our reporter, Andy Losi.
The Notre Dame offensive line has been recognized as one of the most dominant units in the country, but not in 2021. A usual strong front line for the Fighting Irish has struggled through the first 5 games of the season by allowing 22 sacks. Although only allowing 2 sacks in their 24-13 defeat to Cincinnati, the damage has been dealt to the quarterback position. Transfer quarterback Jack Cohn, who has started all 5 games for the Fighting Irish this season, was replaced by Drew Pine, who came in following a scoreless first half against the Bearcats. Now, coming into their battle against the Hokies, head coach Brian Kelly still doesn't know who will be the lead single caller in a pivotal road matchup. Whoever is lucky enough to get the starting gig will have to battle the elements that Blacksburg has to offer. Not only does the forecast call for a rainy Saturday night, but it also will be the first true road test the Fighting Irish have had since going to Tallahassee against Florida State on September 5th. The factors are present to make this game a must-win for the Fighting Irish. And if they want to keep big postseason dreams alive, that's exactly what they have to do come Saturday.
With the question marks surrounding the quarterback room in South Bend, Notre Dame has only managed to scrape by in their victories this season.
Yeah, they had a good win against Purdue, and then they had a good fourth quarter against Wisconsin in a game that really just got away from the Badgers. But other than that, Notre Dame has not been that impressive. It took a fantastic fourth quarter effort and a game-winning touchdown to take down Toledo at home in week 2. And then in the season opener, it took overtime to take down Florida State. And now at that point, we said, hey, maybe the Seminoles are a really good football team. Since then, they've won 1 matchup against Syracuse last week and currently sit at 1-4. So though Notre Dame's been ranked in the top 10 pretty much all season long, not quite sure if they're what everybody expected them to be.
Now on the flip side, Virginia Tech coming off of a bye week, and like we said earlier, an underwhelming victory over FCS opponent. They started the season with a top 10 win over UNC, but since then, UNC has fallen completely out of the AP poll and not even receiving votes.
Yeah, it was a magical win for Virginia Tech on a Friday night in Blacksburg to open up the season against the North Carolina Tar Heels. But since then, North Carolina has completely fallen off. What looked like a marquee win for the Hokies just really isn't that impressive anymore, as North Carolina has since fallen to Georgia Tech, fallen out of the top 25, and just aren't what everybody thought that they were going to be. Virginia Tech also lost one on the road to West Virginia. Now, West Virginia has one of the best defenses in the Power 5, which is definitely a mismatch for a struggling Virginia Tech offense. But since then, West Virginia currently sits at 2-3, and that loss is a pretty bad one despite the ruckus crowd on the road.
Now we send it over for the more on the boys in Blacksburg, over to our own Tyler Katz.
Virginia Tech's offense has been lackluster so far this season. Ever since taking a big hit against Middle Tennessee that sidelined him for a drive, Braxton Burmeister has been sacked 9 times. In the last 2 games, the Hokies have not scored multiple times in a quarter. Silver lining for Virginia Tech, they're coming off their bye week to prepare for the Irish. You would think this break would help most teams, but historically it's not been kind to the Hokies. Last season, Tech had 2 weeks to prepare for then number 4 Clemson and lost by 35. Maybe forgivable against a top 5 team, but in the last 5 games after byes, the Hokies winless, with losses to Duke, Old Dominion, Georgia Tech, and Notre Dame themselves back in 2019. Another opportunity for the Hokies to break the streak when the Irish visit Blacksburg.
Certainly a huge opportunity on Saturday night for the Hokies. Now, head coach Justin Fuente talked earlier this week about how he sent his players home for a week to go see their families. A lot of players actually got in the car and traveled together. He talked about how he felt like a parent, a little worried about them traveling, a little worried about them getting back on time, but it was certainly good for those guys to get home before coming back in preparation this week for a huge game Saturday night.
Yeah, these players have been here since the second week in August, and they haven't really seen their family or have had good family time since the beginning of the season. And it's good for a player or anybody to go home and see their family before the real grind of the season starts in a few weeks.
Yeah, and another thing for Virginia Tech, they had some owies, you could say, some injuries that they had to take care of. Number one has to be the shoulder of quarterback Braxton Burmeister. He said in his press conference he's been a little banged up as of late. Certainly good for him and the rest of the guys to get that much-needed rest.
Yeah, arguably that could be the best thing about a bye week is that you can rest up your players and you don't have to stress them out or strain them too hard in practices, especially in that first week of the 2-week break that you get. So certainly for the Hokies, that is a big opportunity to heal up for a big top 15 game.
Well, there's a Notre Dame running back that might have a soft spot in his heart for the Virginia Tech Hokies and Lane Stadium. The Richmond, Virginia native returns to the place where he sparked his love for college football. So for more on Chris Tyree, we bounce it over to Carter Hill.
Chris Tyree grew up hearing all about Virginia Tech football. This weekend, though, he'll be on the opposing sideline as Tyree and his 14th-ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish make the trip to Lane Stadium to take on the hometown Hokies. The Chester, Virginia native was a 5-star recruit, according to 247 Sports, out of Thomasdale High School, and he quickly worked his way into the fold as one of the Irish's top 2 running backs in just his sophomore season up in South Bend. Not only has Tyree made an impact on the ground with his elite speed, according to head coach Justin Fuente, he's also brought some beamer ball up to Notre Dame as he ran back a 96-yard kick return in their 41-13 victory over Wisconsin earlier this season. The Tyree guest list ought to be full this weekend as he'll look to make his mark back here for the first time in his home state of Virginia.
It will be a wild atmosphere in Blacksburg when Virginia Tech hosts Notre Dame for a primetime kickoff in Lane Stadium. It'll be the first primetime kickoff in Blacksburg since Virginia Tech hosted Duke on a Friday night in 2019.
Yeah, the first nighttime Enter Sandman in the dark of the year since 2019, really. And it's the Hokie effect, stripe out Lane Stadium game. So there's going to be maroon and orange all across. Should be incredibly exciting. I just hope that the weather holds up and the rain ponchos don't get in the way of that.
Notre Dame will want to come in and silence the crowd quickly, and that's one of your keys to game. What are the rest, Mr. Giovanni?
Well, I think for Notre Dame, you have to come in, and like you said, you have to take the crowd out of it early. Besides that, you have to protect the football. You can't turn this thing over because Virginia Tech has the ability to make big plays with their defense, especially with intercepting the football. And I think besides that, they have to force Virginia Tech to do what they're uncomfortable doing, and that's dropping back Braxton Burmeister and making him throw the ball down the field. Now, Virginia Tech's really good in the short passing game, but if you get into the 20, 30-yard range, that's where Burmeister starts to struggle, and that's where Notre Dame can really exploit this Virginia Tech offense.
On the flip side, you talked about it, Burmeister struggles this season throwing the ball downfield. If he's on his A game, Notre Dame defense needs to look out. The wide receivers for Virginia Tech also need to get separation to make those big plays happen for Burmeister to hit them in stride. And like you said earlier with their defense, they need to capitalize and stop Notre Dame from driving down the field early on and silencing the crowd.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really exciting game. Could be a low-scoring kind of affair. Nonetheless, these are two very evenly matched teams that, like we said early, mirror each other really well. So really excited to see what happens on Saturday night in Blacksburg.
Well, for Andy Losi, Tyler Katz, Giovanni Heater, and Carter Hill, I'm Nick Brown. We will see you in Lane Stadium for an exciting primetime matchup between the Hokies and the Fighting Irish. Enjoy your college football Saturday, everybody.